Well, 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 if it isn't the consequences of your own actions. Bonjour, and welcome back to The Chanel. So, a lot of documents from the Lively v. Wayfarer case have been unsealed. And I don't even know where the f to start. It's a whole goddamn mess. And it's actually a lot more sinister than I originally thought. Like, actually cartoonishly evil shit that's going on. So, like I said, I honestly have no idea where to start here. I think the way that I'm going to structure all of this is we're going to start from some of the depositions that I thought were interesting and then work our way up the mountain. Starting with Isabella Ferrer. So, Isabella was young Lily in the movie, and she was deposed as she was identified as one of the other women on set who seemed to have an issue with Justin. So Isabella says that there were 3 instances or interactions with Justin that she had that made her feel uncomfortable. The first interaction includes a scene where young Lily and young Atlas are intimate for the first time. Isabella claims that Justin, after the scene, pulled her aside and said something to the effect of, "I know I'm not supposed to say this, but that was hot." Isabella says that it made her feel uncomfortable because it didn't feel appropriate in a work environment, and given that it was not necessarily like a note of any kind to do with my acting, it felt out of place and strange to hear about a scene, especially a scene that is meant to be a PG scene about 2 young teenagers having a very innocent experience intimately. It felt out of place to hear my director say that as a personal thing to me and my co-star. So I guess I'm just a little bit confused here, and of course it's really hard to know what exactly happened without any proper evidence. But how is it possible that Isabella definitively knows that Justin was speaking about her and not about the scene itself? And also, just a side note, a lot of the complaints that Blake, Isabella, and Jenny Slate have are things related to what Justin said about their characters. For example, they didn't like the word sexy or hot being used to characterize their characters or to describe their outfits. And also, it's confusing because he's the director on a film that's mostly centered on sex and R-rated themes. And what it sounds like is that you're just claiming Justin is a predator because he made some comments about fictional characters that made you feel uncomfortable. I feel like I'm losing my fucking mind. And it's also not like Justin was saying this to actual teenagers. Isabella is in her 20s and so is her co-star. So yeah, it might be a little bit of a weird comment. I can understand that. But again, I don't think it really counts as sexual harassment. And the way she characterizes it is almost as if she is a teenager. She's not a teenager. She's a grown-ass adult. The characters are teenagers, yes, but not Isabella. I don't know, I'm confused. But whatever, we'll give her the benefit of the doubt here. The next instance that Isabella cites is that there was a scene in which Atlas and Lily were in the kitchen making cookies, mixing cookie dough. And I'm sorry, I'm trying to figure out who the attorney is that's deposing Isabella, but it doesn't say in the document that I'm looking at, unless I'm just not looking in the right place. But again, just a reminder, I am not a lawyer, so I'm just fumbling through these documents and deciphering what I can. But the lawyer deposing Isabella in this document asks, "You mentioned that there was an incident in which Mr. Baldoni gave you a note about licking cookie dough off of your co-star's finger and looking up at him. Is that right?" Isabella responds, "No, it was a spoon in which he was feeding me the cookie dough. But yes, it was a note to lick it and look up at my co-star in a manner that I immediately kind of associated with something that had a sexual undertone." The lawyer says, "The note about licking cookie dough off a spoon and looking up at your co-star that Mr. Baldoni gave you. Is it correct that you were uncomfortable with that?" Isabella responds, "It is not that I wasn't comfortable with that, but I found that to be inappropriate." Why? It didn't make sense to me in the scene that we were filming that my character would do that kind of thing, given that she was 16 and in high school. Okay, so let's compare what Isabella is claiming here to what Colleen actually wrote in her book. And mind you, Isabella has said in this deposition itself that she has read the book cover to cover 3 times over. So here's the excerpt from the book itself. "What are you making?" I asked him. I pushed my hands on the island and hoisted myself onto it. Cookies, he said. He walked the bowl over to me and stuck a spoon in the mixture. He brought the spoon up to my mouth and I tasted it. One of my weaknesses is cookie dough, and this was the best I'd ever tasted. Oh wow, I said, licking my lips. He sat the bowl down beside me and then leaned in and kissed me. Cookie dough and Atlas's mouth mixed together is like heaven, in case you're wondering. I made a noise deep in my throat that let him know how much I liked the combination, and it made him laugh. But he didn't stop kissing me. He just laughed through the kiss, and it completely melted my heart. A happy Atlas was near mind-blowing. It made me want to uncover every single thing about this world that he likes and give it all to him. So this is literally something that is written in the book. So Isabella should have an issue with the source material, not Justin. The book literally says that this is what happens, and I would not be surprised if this was actually what was written in the script. I mean, to me, it honestly makes it weirder that Isabella is characterizing it as sexual. And even if Justin did make some sort of insinuation that this was supposed to be a sexual gesture, at the most, that just makes Justin a creep. Does it make him a sexual predator? Does it make him a sexual harasser? No. And to be clear, I don't think that Justin was a creep. And I just don't believe that this was not something that was already written in the script, given that it was in the source material. And then finally, the last incident that Isabella cites that made her feel uncomfortable was an incident that didn't even happen to her. It happened to her co-star, Alex, who was young Atlas. The lawyer says, "Did you also mention that Alex shared with you when he met Mr. Baldoni? He commented something to the effect of, 'I really want you to get to know Isabella,' and then winked at him." Yeah, it was after the first day Alex and I met, and after it was the first day on the set in the location in New Jersey when I had just been driven out. I was introduced to Alex and I met, and then, this is according to Alex a couple of months later, when there was a moment when I was away from both of them and we were getting ready to go to Jersey City again, or not again, for the first time, from in New Jersey, Justin pulled Alex aside and said that he wanted Alex to get to know me really well, and yes, winked at him. And you were uncomfortable learning about that interaction? Yes. Why is that? Because I had just met Alex and that was my director, and to insinuate something of that kind of manner, I found to be inappropriate. Did you feel that comment from Mr. Baldoni that Alex should get to know you and then winking was sexualizing you? Yes. Am I the dumbass here? I just don't get it. And I am seriously trying to understand and put myself in Isabella's shoes to try to really feel what she might have been feeling in that moment. And I guess I can get why it might feel creepy or weird, but does that amount to sexual harassment? And then also, this isn't even something that she heard from Justin herself. This is something that Justin relayed to Alex, and then Alex told Isabella. So can we even rely on this as evidence for anything? I feel so much cognitive dissonance with this case because I'm really trying to understand the women's side of this, and it just does not make any sense. It just feels like they're picking at anything that they can find because they dug themselves into this hole that they're now trying to crawl their way out of to somehow come up on the top. It doesn't make any sense to me. The last thing that I want to point out in Isabella's deposition is this part regarding Justin not defending the women in the movie. The lawyer says, "In the next sentence of that same text you wrote, Justin has been playing all of this up because he knows he's about to get his exposed, so he's hyping her up and then playing the victim at the same time. What did you mean when you said Justin has been playing all of this up?" She responds, "I think I meant the bullying and the narrative that was coming out after the premieres and after it was deemed by the public on social media that me and Blake and the rest of the cast didn't care about the real meaning of this movie, and given his, again, lack of really speaking up for any of us or talking or coming out publicly to even defend not Blake but even just me, I found it to be kind of in line with then him promoting himself and his voiced opinions about domestic violence and him being able to kind of be the only person to talk about that. So it seemed to me that he was playing this narrative up that we don't care and that he does." In another section, the lawyer says, "On page IF_28, in the middle you wrote, 'Absolutely, I really hope he feels one day morally responsible for promoting bullying towards us after the way he's treated us already. And I'm grateful I'm not taking it too personally, and I'm aware that it's bullshit.'" I'm going to stop there. How did Justin promote bullying towards you? Isabella responds, Given the online hate that I was getting, it seems like there was nothing being done to speak out against the bullying that was happening to the women and the cast, while he was going along with the rest of his press run, and I assume anybody that was online would have seen what was going on. So also, from what I had gathered information-wise from people such as Blake, it was kind of assumed that due to hiring a PR crisis manager, that this kind of narrative was starting to get spun online. Okay, so there's a lot to unpack here. First off, I want to acknowledge that it sounds like Blake was feeding Isabella information, and Isabella, trusting Blake and trusting that Blake was telling the truth, was getting hyped up by Blake's claims. And I get it, she's not super young, she is in her 20s, but Blake is a seasoned actress and Isabella is very new to acting. This was her first major role. And unfortunately, she got tied up with someone like Blake, who is very snaky and shady. And perhaps she hasn't learned the lesson that Hollywood is just about power grabs, manipulating other people. It's a very toxic culture. And so I want to give Isabella the benefit of the doubt that this is a new experience for her. And if I were to put myself in her shoes, I could probably be very easily influenced by someone like Blake. So I get it. What I don't get is Isabella expecting Justin to defend the women and the other actors who are receiving hate online. So Justin was iced out of his own premiere of his own movie and basically was stripped of his voice. He was bullied out of the main cast, all of the promotional materials. In fact, Ryan Reynolds' company, Maximum Effort, took over the marketing for this movie. So what I'm not understanding is, why do you feel entitled to Justin defending you when he was effectively shut out of his own movie? The entire film was usurped by Blake and Ryan, and Isabella was witness to that. I saw someone on Reddit say something to the effect of, Isabella expected Justin to load the pistol that she was going to shoot him in the back with. But then what's also crazy is that none of the women did anything to even try to defend themselves. But Justin is expected to swoop in and defend them. It's not his fault y'all were talking about the movie in such a tactless, tasteless way. It's not his fault that there were themed cocktails named after abusive characters being served at the after party for the premiere. It's not his fault that Blake was the one who told everyone to grab their friends, wear their florals, and go watch the movie. It's not Justin's fault that Blake chose to promote her hair care in conjunction with the It Ends With Us promotions. In summary, it's not Justin's fault that Blake decided to be a dumbass. Like, Isabella, stand the fuck up. Sickening. Absolutely sickening. I can't deal with it. I just can't. Okay, so that was Isabella's deposition. Now I want to move on to Jenny Slate's. In Jenny's deposition, she describes the set as being chaotic, which I can understand. I mean, Justin is a fairly new director, and it also sounds like Blake did a lot of things that made filming really difficult. And of course, we saw Justin really giving in to everything that Blake wanted. So I don't doubt that it was a chaotic set. On page 51 of Jenny's deposition, the lawyer asks a question about more specifics regarding what comments made Jenny feel uncomfortable. They say, when you say his inappropriate comments, you mentioned the hot and sexy comments to Miss Lively. Were there any comments to you that you felt were inappropriate at the time? Yes. And is this from Mr. Baldoni? Yes. What did he say to you that you felt was inappropriate? He said something like, I can say this because my wife is here, but you look sexy in what you're wearing. And what about that did you feel is inappropriate? I would say it breaks a pretty well understood norm to comment, give your personal opinion on how someone's body looks. So a couple things. It does sound like, from the evidence that Justin was able to release, that sexy and hot were words that were being used a lot by not just Justin, but also by Blake to describe the costume design and what the characters look like. I'm not saying that this is an appropriate comment to make, because if I'm being fully honest, I would probably feel super uncomfortable if someone said that to me. But I do think it's different when we consider the context that this is a film set. So the conversations that people have might not be something that you would see in a traditional work environment. And I'm not trying to make excuses for Justin. I think it's completely valid if Jenny Slate felt uncomfortable by that. That is something worthy of complaining about, which she did. She told Justin that that was something that made her uncomfortable, and Justin apologized for it. In Justin's deposition, he also admits to this and says pretty much the same thing that Jenny said in her deposition. When describing this incident, he says, "Miss Slate walked in. As a director, I was doing whatever I was doing, getting the set ready. I looked over to her. She was wearing I believe, black leather pants, which were designed to, I'm sure, look sexy. And without thinking, I said something to the effect of, 'Oh wow, those pants look sexy on you.' And my memory, if it serves me correctly, my wife is in the room nearby, and I think in my head I was like, oh, maybe I shouldn't have said that. And I said, and I say that as a married man with my wife in the other room, because I did not want it to come off in any way like it apparently did. So I was just, in that moment, it was just an instant where I said something that I was like, I probably shouldn't have said that, and just tried to not make it super awkward and make a bad joke at the end of it. I'm sure we've all been in situations where we've put our foot in our mouths and said something pretty stupid. And it sounds like from what Jenny Slate and Justin said in their depositions, that they addressed it right then and there. Jenny explained why it made her feel uncomfortable and that that was something that she did not appreciate, and Justin apologized for it. Justin, in his deposition, also describes another incident that Blake had specifically complained about. He says, "In a conversation where I was speaking to Miss Lively about her wardrobe, as a director, I wanted to see the onesie because all the characters were wearing onesies. She had a large jacket on, and we were having a bit of a negotiation as I was trying to gently ask her to remove it." And like many conversations with Miss Lively, there's a back and forth that can go on for quite some time. And it got to the point where I believe I said to her that it looked hot, to which she replied, earlier she said she thought it was cute and that's why she wanted to wear it. And then I had said it, down the line, I had said it looked hot, and she said, that's not what I was going for. And then I made a joke. I said, sexy? She goes, not that either. And then immediately I paused and I said, I'm sorry. Did I just cross a boundary? And Miss Slate shared what we talked about earlier, to which case I thanked them both. I apologized to Miss Lively again. And then in regards to a conversation that he had with Jenny after, he says, I said something along the lines of, that can't be easy. I wish you didn't need to say what you said, and I really appreciate you sharing that with me. And I apologized again to Miss Lively for using the word sexy as it related specifically to her character's wardrobe. Justin also admits to another tasteless joke that he made. He says, in response to Jenny Slate's kind of, as I mentioned earlier, joke, as she was saying, we don't say that anymore, I immediately responded and said, I guess I missed the sexual harassment meeting. The lawyer asks, did you miss the sexual harassment meeting? That's why I made the joke, because I did not miss the sexual harassment meeting. Again, this sounds like the words or the culture surrounding the character's wardrobe. This was how it seemed to be described by not only Justin, but also by Blake. In fact, she says sexy quite often. And so in isolation, his comments do feel strange and a little bit weird, and I can imagine myself feeling uncomfortable, but given the context of how everyone was communicating on set, it's not creepy, and in fact, probably the least creepy of all of the things said. However, because Jenny did bring up that this was something that she did not like, Justin shouldn't have said it again. And it sounds like he tried his best to correct the mistake that he made by apologizing, making sure that Jenny felt heard, and making an intentional effort not to do it again. In Jenny Slate's deposition, she even admits that she didn't even want to be part of a lawsuit. On page 296 of her deposition, she says, this is not my lawsuit. The lawyer says, okay, is there a reason why you did not join Blake Lively in this lawsuit? She responds, I felt that I settled my issues on set and I wanted to move on. So it sounds like this was something that she felt was resolved and didn't need any further clarification or resolution, and that she was satisfied with the changes that Justin made after this incident. And I've been trying to find this, but for some reason I can't find it anywhere. But at one point on set, Jenny did bring up a discussion that made her feel uncomfortable, and this was regarding her living arrangements during the filming. She felt that the place that she had rented wasn't suitable for her child. I think it was just not child safe. I'm not entirely sure. And she brought this up to Jamie Heath, and Jamie Heath offered to pay $15,000 for her to find another place to stay that met her needs. But when he said this, he said, "I understand the sanctity of motherhood." I don't know, I personally feel like that's a pretty weird thing to say. I get this vibe that Jamie and Justin have this very sensitive, flowery way of speaking, and sometimes it can be off-putting to people who are very unfamiliar with it or don't know them very well. So if someone said that to me, I feel like I would have felt a certain type of way. But it sounds like she brought it up and filed an HR complaint, so I guess it was kind of resolved. But unfortunately for Jenny, there is more to this interaction, evidenced by her and Blake's text messages to each other. In this text thread, we see Jenny reach out to Blake regarding Jenny reaching out to Angie Janetti at Sony to discuss some of the discomfort that she was experiencing on set. Hey divas, it's Editing Lucy Goo over here, and I started this video feeling so ambitious because I had so many text messages, so many screenshots, and what's crazy is that the highlighting effect that I'm doing is taking me like actually an hour for each. Okay, that's an exaggeration, but a long ass time. So for the sake of time and my sanity, I'm gonna drop that for the rest of this video, especially because this video is already so freaking long. So sorry it won't be as cute, but I appreciate you sticking around anyway. In this thread, Blake says, "I haven't spoken to Justin or Jamie or Alex about the inappropriate behavior yet. You can just speak to what you've witnessed and experienced. I told Angie, but I asked her not to mention so that I could personally tackle, since I have to salvage some degree of chemistry and camaraderie with Justin, who's not only my director, but love interest, and we're not even 1/3 of the way done." Jenny responds, "Okay, totally get that. I'll keep it with me. My concerns about needing leadership, the remark about my wardrobe, but I'll just keep it with me. It's more to let her know I'm uneasy and that I don't want it to get worse, and how freaked out that recording sitch made me feel." So the recording situation, I think, if I'm understanding the timeline correctly, I think she's referencing a Zoom call that she had with Justin and Jamie, and it sounds like from these text messages that Justin had recorded the call with his phone. I don't know why he did that, but to me it sounds like he could sense there was some weird tension in the air, and he felt like he had to start recording things and taking a record of things to cover his ass just in case. But again, that's just my assumption. There is no factual basis for it, so take it with a grain of salt. Blake then responds, "But whatever you felt or seen, 100%, feel free, please. I just think there needs to be some leadership." Later in the conversation, Jenny says, "I'll let you know how it goes. I want her to know that I just don't want my work to suffer and don't want to feel weird. I'm going to meet her at noon. I think face-to-face is best, just generally. I like normal face-to-face convos, but I also want her to understand that while I want to voice concerns, I also just want to be able to finish out my work and not make it awkward. I think it's best to let her know, but again, if you feel like it's too much, I don't need to say anything except my feelings about the recording incident and my anxiety about the WGA stuff." She then sends a message that says, "I'm running through my head now, all of the things that I've said that I shouldn't have said. Like maybe I somehow opened the door. I can certainly run blue in my own comments about my own life, and I now wish I never said anything." Now, here's where it gets pretty stinky. I smell some rotting fish. Later in the conversation, Jenny says, "I truly am so sorry that I made that remark about our tiny bedroom in our shitty Airbnb. I think back on it now, referencing that it was bad for sex, and just realizing that that is way inappropriate to say, and I hope that you know that I know that it wasn't the setting for that kind of remark. And also, now knowing that you guys sleep as a fam, it must have just seemed like such a bummer judgment. I'm so sorry. I def have no judgment on it, but I'm sure it seemed that way. Our bed, it's just what works for me. Not at all trying to say it's what we should all be doing. Wish I had not said that, and as you say, we move on, but I do want you to know that I remember it and regret it. So sorry if I made you feel upset." Blake responds, "Oh my gosh, no worries at all. I mean it. At all. You do not need to revisit anything that's been said. That is so generous of you to say this, but so not necessary. Please don't stress about any of it. The truth is, dynamics are different with women and men, and there is a safety with women that there isn't with men. Also, they had screwed you on your living situation, and you had to ask for something better. So casually making a joke about sex was likely a subconscious way of playing to your audience. If the guy who could authorize moving could empathize, then you and your family would be out of there. It all tracks. Also, in that moment, it actually wasn't you that was strange. It was JB. You didn't know we all sleep in bed together. He did. And when he said that, he said, oh yeah, terrible for sex. It was so odd that he said that instead of just laughing like I did. He's always trying to be liked, and so joining makes sense for him. But it was still something I clocked on his part. Because I know we all sleep in the same bed, obviously, and he knows. I almost made a joke about what you do instead as a workaround, but I thought, no, that's not only not appropriate, but not relevant. And he's the one who would even know why I'm saying that, and he doesn't deserve my causal defensiveness. Jenny says, blech, I've been shaking my head about it all morning. I guess I was just trying to make like some sort of joke, sort of at my own expense. But yes, I think you're right that subliminally it was a message. There's no way to get an Airbnb in these neighborhoods for the amount of money that they allotted me. But then, when you shared that you guys do a family bed, my heart just sank. It's a huge lesson learned on my part, and thank you for being so forgiving and understanding. And Justin is so weird for jumping on that joke if he knew anything about your family dynamic. He's so volatile and desperate. Lots to unpack here. So Jenny is admitting that she also made a joke similar to what Justin said in that situation, and Justin was just piggybacking off of that joke. And then Blake over here is trying to rationalize and justify why it was okay for Jenny to say that, but not for Justin. It's a weird fucking double standard. So it's okay for Blake and Jenny to use that type of language, but when Justin wants to use it, it's inappropriate and creepy. And it says a lot that Jenny is apologizing for saying this without Blake even bringing this up. It seems like she was scared shitless that Blake was going to bring this up and complain about Jenny, so she tried to mitigate it as quickly as possible so she didn't get on Blake's bad side. So again, what I'm gathering from these texts is that this was a culture on set. We have to remember that a creative setting, a movie set, is very different from the traditional workspace. Not to mention, the movie talks a lot about sex. In fact, the movie itself is a lot less sexual than the book is. But both Blake and Jenny admit that neither of them read the book. So of course, how the fuck would they even know that? So they themselves don't even have the context of the movie and the subject matter. The way they talk about Justin is like he's the weird kid in class and they're the popular girls. And it's okay for them to act a certain way because they're pretty or people like them, but it's not okay for other people to act that way purely based on their social status. It seems just so elitist. And don't get me wrong, I would not feel this way if Justin was the only one who was acting this way. But here in this message, they are admitting themselves that they would respond similarly. The double standard is crazy. Alright, so let's move on to Colleen Hoover. In her deposition, she references an article that was about Justin Baldoni and an interview he did. She says, he did an article about how in the script and in the movie, he had Lily leave Ryle, and Ryle did not get custody and was no longer in their lives, and it upset me because the online narrative at the time was very much against the females who were involved in the movie. Blake and I, Isabella, were getting a lot of online hate, and I felt like Justin was posting things, and all the comments on it were about how great he is for talking about domestic violence and all this stuff while we were silent about it. And this article in particular was very damaging for me because it made it look like I should have, not that I should have written the ending differently, but that he chose to change the ending. But I knew that wasn't true because after I'd written book 2, we had many conversations about a potential second movie, and in order for there to be a second movie, he would still be part of Lily and the child's life. Okay, so the ending of the It Ends With Us book was very controversial because people didn't like that Ryle's character was very unrealistic to how an abuser would actually act. And it also promoted this narrative that abusers should be forgiven by their victims. But in a lot of DV situations, abusers will repeat the patterns and will do everything that they can to keep their victims under their control. In a previous video, I had said that I liked that Ryle was a sympathetic character. And while I still agree with that, I also agree that Colleen shouldn't have written Ryle as a character who comes back into Lily's life because he was dangerous. He physically harmed her and even SA'd her, and letting him have access to her during her pregnancy was icky and I know was very triggering for a lot of victims of DV. So Colleen here is arguing that because Justin said that he originally wanted to do a different ending that was more aligned with what a lot of the readers wanted, it was making the women of the film look bad in comparison. It's not Justin's fault that you guys were being so insensitive to the topic. Yeah, by contrast, it does make you look a lot worse, but that's your own goddamn fault. And she says that him wanting this different ending was not true because there were talks about having a sequel. But just because there were plans that there was going to be a sequel, the sequel script was not even written. And Colleen herself says that she wasn't even involved in the script of It Ends With Us. In fact, she says that she stopped being involved with the script writing because it was too overwhelming for her. So how would she even know what the plan was for the end of the movie? Justin could adapt the script so that it made sense canonically with the first film. So in my opinion, her argument is moot. Something that I wanted to point out from Colleen's deposition is that she says that Blake told her to unfollow Justin Baldoni on social media. But guess what Blake claims in her deposition? Blake says she didn't tell anyone to unfollow Justin on social media. Those two things cannot exist in the same universe. So who the hell is lying here? The last deposition I want to look at is Angie Giannetti, one of the Sony executives. In her deposition, she's asked, "Do you recall telling Jamie Heath that you thought Blake was a f***ing terrorist?" Angie responds, "Yes." So Sony, the co-financier and distributor, is also agreeing that Blake is acting like a complete diva on set. And it doesn't end here, because Angie was also present for the January 4th meeting. She's asked, "Were you surprised by what you heard at the meeting?" "Very. What surprised you about it?" "Many things surprised me. I was surprised at the beginning that Ryan was joining the meeting because I thought we were going to be talking about the script and the schedule. And then they asked for the line producer to leave because we had was it the line producer or this? I don't know. We had someone technical from the set to leave, which was fine. And then she proceeded to read a list of things. It was a pretty shocking list. Why was it shocking? I had not heard the majority of the things on the list, and I didn't know that. I wasn't prepared for that was the kind of meeting we were having. And was anybody addressing Justin directly? Yeah, I mean, it was to the room, but yeah, I think it was mostly to Justin. Was Ryan Reynolds yelling at Justin? It was a very long meeting, and there were times, yes, his voice was raised. Did you feel bad for Justin? Yes. Why? I think it went over 5 hours, and he was visibly frozen. Did Todd Black, who I think is another producer that was on the film, and I believe allegedly he quit actually due to this meeting, but Friedman asks, did Todd Black talk to you about his reaction to the meeting at length? Did he tell you it was one of the hardest meetings he had ever been to in his entire career? He did. What did he say about that? It was the fact that we were not prepared for such, that we thought something else was going to occur, and the length of the meeting. And that there was, I don't even think there was a break. We never experienced that. And Angie Giannetti is not the only Sony executive that had some to say about Blake and Ryan. Sony's president, Sanford Panitch, said, "It's quite ironic because she has a huge hit movie headed to 300 million plus, and probably will never work again, or not for a while, although even Hathaway recovered. Tom thinks she's probably and bizarrely unhireable right now." Someone responds, "This will pass. She is going to be fine." An apology to that reporter would help. And I think this reporter is a reference to Shashti Flaw, who is the reporter that released an interview where Blake was being exceptionally rude to her. Sanford responds, "No, disagree. She is done for, at least for a while. It's cooked. She said she is retiring to Josh or something. It will take a few years. Ava Mendes time. She did it to herself. If she just let him come to the premiere or didn't make all the cast unfollow him or kick him off the movie and did what everyone ever has done in show business for time and memorial, which is protect the show, then none of this sleuthing would have happened. The hair sell at the same time was epic level stupid. She wouldn't listen. She knows better." And then that person responds, "All of this is true." Oh, but it doesn't end there, because more Sony executives' emails are unsealed, and in this one, there's an email between Josh Greenstein and Tara Grant. All this would do is continue to reinforce what everyone is saying, that Blake is a bully. She's not getting support even with Daily Mail and NYP. She orchestrated all this drama in a totally unsavvy and amateur way and basically threatened you and Sony, and now is mad it backfired on her. Better than alternative because she and her team are playing with fire with all this borderline abusive language. That's where shit can spiral, and it hasn't taken hold at all. There's another Sanford Panitch email where he has more unsavory things to say about Blake. Regarding Wayfair giving Blake a producer credit for the film, he says, "I can't believe they caved on the producer credit for her. Home responds, she wants to change credits, all the order of producers, her second position moving Jamie to third, executive producers, cast order single cards, cut film by, move cast crawl before keys. I've been dealing with this since 9 a.m. Sanford says, this is truly insanity. Home responds, Wayfarer doesn't even know all this, and we cannot renegotiate cast deals so she can move kids up. And I think when this person says kids, they're referring to Isabella Ferrer, and I'm not sure who the other one could be. Nor movie cast crawl before keys, even though she wants Sony to call guilds to get the PGA credit. She expects Sony, aka me, to persuade Wayfarer to agree to remove a film by Justin Baldoni and move her producer credit before theirs. Getting them to approve giving her a producer credit was Herculean. She just turned over her editorial changes to cut after Dallas, so going to watch now. We'll report back. I don't want us to ask them, or do that for her. She can ask herself, we've bent over backwards enough. This is getting now to the point of absurdity. I think that I said that these were emails, but it looks like, based on the message after that, it's actually a text chain. At first, I was gonna say, dang, these people really send some unprofessional, typo-filled emails, but now I'm seeing it's texts. So okay, I'll give them a pass here. Okay, so now we get to the most damning piece of evidence that literally destroys all of Blake Lively's claims. And this is the Producers Guild of America letter. Basically, this letter serves as a producer's mark and certifies that this person performed the duties of a producer and contributed significantly to the film's final product. It's a highly esteemed title, which is why Blake was trying to receive this recognition. But this letter is so remarkable. I'm actually in shock. She sounds absurd in this letter. And I am not pro AI, but this girl could have used some help with ChatGPT because this is so fucking embarrassing. This letter is 5 pages long and outlines all that Blake did to contribute to the movie. I will not be reading all of this, not only because it's so long, but also because my brain will explode with the absurdity. But I do want to point out some bullets that she wrote in this letter. She brags about how she often broke schedule and budget in pre-production and then daily and often hourly during production. I think that this is actually a typo though, because this would actually be the dumbest thing I've seen ever. But it's ironic because while she's implying that she broke down all of the schedule and budget to keep everyone on track, she's also the reason that the filming was so delayed, even after the writer's strike, because she wanted to go on vacations with Ryan and attend her bestie Taylor Swift's concerts. And she went insanely over budget with her wardrobe and her insistence on having a heart tattoo that wasn't true to the story. And when fans saw this and expressed disappointment, she made post-production go through and fix it in every scene it appeared in, costing an additional $100K to an already overspent budget. She also claims that she managed the politics and HR concerns on a daily basis, acting as an intermediary to keep crew and cast engaged, safe, and on board. She claims that she was producing 2 content days in the week that this letter was written with her husband, Ryan, and her production company, Maximum Effort, to grab more PR and marketing materials with 8 cast members and 2 producers and the author for release. She says, I've been on the phone with cast's representatives, producers, showrunners, tour managers, spouses, travel agents, and beyond to coordinate their schedules for press, going as far as successfully begging their bosses to release them for press for our film. And lastly, I've personally reached out to sponsors to help with costs for our premiere and after party, helping to secure a deal with the Bolid Group to host our party there, etc. I feel like I don't even have to add commentary after reading this. You tell me, was Blake Lively powerless on the set of It Ends With Us? Was she the victim of a smear campaign because she was following marketing plans that were not laid out by Wayfarer Productions as she claimed, but by her own marketing company? Was Blake Lively a victim of sexual harassment? And I'm telling you, everything that I've laid out in this video today barely scratches the surface of everything that's there to prove that Blake Lively was not a victim. Seeing how Blake calls Justin a clown and a doofus behind his back, even before they even started production, says enough to me. Based on everything that we've seen in Justin's communications with his team, as well as with Blake and the other cast members, Even if you believe he did things wrong on set, which I agree, he probably did do some things wrong or just wasn't experienced enough to run a set efficiently or as professionally as the actors probably hoped for, there is no denying that Justin is a good person. He had pure intentions right from the beginning and all the way to the end. He constantly took the high road. He did not speak illy of people like Blake, even when he was angry at what she was doing, even when he felt betrayed. I think he had really pure intentions that were much too pure for Hollywood and its toxic environment. And it's a shame that a film that he was hoping would have a really strong and important message was completely tainted by this horrible narcissistic villain who tried to ruin his career. And people still believe her. And that's the worst part of all of this. The amount of vitriol and pure hatred that Ryan and Blake spew about Justin, calling him a predator, a danger, saying he's a creep, accusing him of sexual harassment, is completely disproportionate to what Justin actually did. And still, I'm so confused. What did Justin do? There's so much evidence of Blake, Ryan, Jenny, Isabella, Colleen, calling Justin disgusting, gross, a clown, a doofus, annoyingly sensitive, creepy, but at most, the only things that have been proven to be completely true are that he did make comments about Jenny Slate and Blake Lively's wardrobe being sexy, and made a single comment about how the performance of two adult actors in a sex scene of a movie he directed was hot, but everything else seems to be a manipulation of the truth, with real evidence that we can see with our own eyes that dispute Blake's claims. Before we end this video, I want to talk about all of these actors and the people involved with It Ends With Us speaking with such bigoted language against the Baha'i faith. The Baha'i religion was born in Iran, but Iran has never recognized it as a legitimate religion. The Islamic Republic, the current authoritarian government of Iran, has intensified repression against the Baha'i community in recent years. Human rights groups have been speaking out about this persecution for decades now. But Baha'is have not only faced persecution within these recent decades, but for over a century, especially after 1979, during the Islamic Revolution in Iran. Thousands of Baha'is are barred from education and employment, have been executed, and are victims of crimes against humanity. While the Baha'i faith began in Iran with a message of unity and justice, Baha'is today continue to face severe persecution in the very country where their religion began. Religious bigotry is never acceptable, and this has been extremely upsetting to me to see how Blake, Ryan, other cast members, other executives in Hollywood have treated Justin just because of his religion, labeling it as a cult. It's not okay, I won't ever tolerate it, and I hope you won't tolerate it either. I'll leave some links down in the description of this video with websites that have information about the current situation in Iran, and human rights organizations that are actively documenting and supporting Baha'is and other citizens in Iran who are being oppressed by the Islamic Republic. I hope that you'll take the time to maybe donate to some of these organizations, or if you're not able to, share with your networks to spread awareness about the human rights violations in Iran. Alrighty, well, thank you all so much for watching. I'm exhausted by this Blake Lively lawsuit. She dug herself a hole, and I hope that she really faces the consequences of her actions. It's really upsetting to me to see how all of this unfolded, stemming from something that was meant to be such a powerful message to women and victims of DV. But I hope that this is the last of it and that Justin Baldoni is vindicated in the end. Let me know what you all think about this in the comments down below. Make sure to like this video and subscribe to my channel. Thank you again for watching, and I'll see y'all in the next one.